Jake, are you done with your California roll yet? So we can start this episode. Like,
that's very funny, Jake.
I mean, was there enough vegan water options for you? Enough alkaline water available to you in the man
know
cave?
our mimosas in North Carolina aren't up to par with Beverly Hills Boulevard, but are they at least like a solid C?
Listen. I do love California. I love being out there, but there's nothing I love more than being here in Charlotte, North Carolina, with all you dumb hicks.
Is that a table shaking or is it an earthquake?
That's not funny. I genuinely have PTSD from this shit.
Yeah, good. We're happy. We might have a bunch of racism, but we don't have earthquakes.
It is. John Tenta will kill me in my sleep one day. I'm ready for it.
He'll kill us all in our sleep. All right, he is the Candyman. If you say John Tenta, it's just fun to say. Just keep saying it in the mirror, regardless if he shows up or not. We want him to show up. We definitely do.
In the scene later, the doctor's like, "It was just sleep apnea. He couldn't breathe anymore."
Well, it's time once again for everybody to come aboard the Manning Cave. I'm Nicolessa, and I know I ain't the only one. Are there any more podcasters up in this house?
Is that a Soul Train parody?
No, that's a fucking Godfather. You know that problematic character that existed in the late 90s in WWE?
Oh, that. But that was a ripoff of Soul Train, too, so that makes sense.
You think everything's a ripoff of Soul Train.
Look it up.
Don Cornelius had his fingers in a lot of pies, my friend.
And all y'all know that the Man Scout Jake Manning be making s'mores nationwide. I need you to roll up that sleeping bag to earn this merit badge. Pack that tent up and say, "Camping ain't easy."
Camping ain't easy.
Why do I not have the free time that you have? Like that is truly a signature of my failure of my career, is I don't have the free time to think about
all these years,
things.
Jake, and you never came up with that.
I have 2 shirts that are being printed as we speak right now that are based off of things that he said.
I spend so much of my time Googling, like, what are Boy Scout terms? What are camping terms?
Nick, in his research, is now a wolf badge. Fucking whatever. Just researching is like, oh shit, I'm like 4th level now and I didn't even know it. And Spencer stares at you from across the room or like shakes her head.
What the fuck are you Googling Boy Scouts? I don't know.
It's not what you think.
All right, we are back for Mr. Perfect Part 2. Where do we start? All right.
You have the notes. Tell us.
So Mr. Perfect would make his return to television November 23rd, 1991 on an episode of Superstars where he became Ric Flair's executive consultant. In that role, he would take somewhat of a manager position, helping Ric win matches, and he was even there for both of Ric's title wins when you all had to pay homage to the man.
I like how sometimes they get creatively around saying the word manager and WWE and WWE, because Vince hates managers, obviously, and then somebody's like, okay, well, we'll trick Vince and we'll call him like executive consultant, and he's just like, I don't hate that. You know, like he doesn't love it, but he's like, I'm not against that for whatever reason. I'm confused on what it is, much like people are confused when I say medical facility instead of hospital, but regardless.
And Vince doesn't say he hates it, and they run out of the room as fast as possible before he can.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect also became a color commentator on Superstars, playing the foil to Vince, but by fall of 92, Perfect was planning on making a comeback, so the WWF bought out his insurance policy. Perfect and Flair were in the midst of a rivalry with Macho Man Randy Savage, building to a tag match at Survivor Series where Flair and Razor Ramon would face Macho Man and the Ultimate Warrior. But Warrior was released from the WWF for doing them roids, so Macho asked Curt to be his partner. This led to November 16th, 92's episode of Primetime Wrestling and a pretty damn epic promo from Mr. Perfect and Bobby the Brain Heenan.
I hate to overhype stuff, but I watched this clip yesterday. It's on YouTube. Nick said it. Say it again. November 16th, 1992, Macho Man Randy Savage picks the perfect partner. It's an entire 32-minute clip. They've taken out all the matches, and it's just the in-between bits of this story. And like I said, I hate hype and stuff, but this is seriously probably now in my top 10 of just like wrestling moments, angles, segments. The way they pace this out, starting with Savage asking Perfect to be his partner and everybody laughing at him and Heenan laughing at him and Mr. Perfect laughing at him. And the way they build it through segments of Curt getting a phone call from this mystery person that Heenan's trying to figure it out, to them trying to show how Heenan's been putting Curt on the back burner. The way they build it up in between each one, and I think Hillbilly Jim's there and Vince is there and they're egging it on and they're sticking the knife in and twisting it, and then Savage comes back on and then Flair and Razor pop in. They're basically starting to talk down to him. It's like, you're our manager, you work for us. The way that Curt sells himself through this and Curt's acting, I was seriously fucking blown away. Curt doesn't say a lot through this whole thing. What he says means something because you can see him thinking about his possibilities. You can see him truly acting in his face, his body movements, everything. It really, I hate overhyping stuff because everybody's like expecting something amazing, and then when it doesn't meet their expectations, they shit on it. So I hate doing that. I usually like to say, oh, this is pretty good, you should check it out. But maybe people don't watch it. But I cannot recommend this enough. I was legit blown the fuck away. It's just, it's a masterpiece. It's just the acting. Flair, Razor, Vince, they are all on fire. They crush the shit out of this. And then that hate that turns into, at the end, Heenan smacks Perfect when he accepts Savage's invitation to be his tag partner. Perfect loses it, grabs Heenan. Heenan starts apologizing profusely. He's almost crying. He pours water all over his head. Just the anger, everything involved. You go from that. At the end of the segment, Curt does the pin flip, laughing as it goes off the air. It is fucking poetry, as pretentious as that is. It is perfect, as stupid as that is. But then you go into the Survivor Series 92 match, and it's just, you feel that fucking heat.
Survivor Series 92 would kick off with Bobby Heenan on commentary, cutting an emotional promo about the Perfect situation. Later, Perfect teamed up with Macho Man Randy Savage against Razor Ramon and Ric Flair, which is not a bad Rushmore of pro wrestling. Perfect starts the match with his old tag partner, Big Scott Hall, who for some reason now was Cuban. But Macho works the majority of this match. I assume they didn't want to rush Mr. Perfect back in too fast and, hurt his back again. It ends in a DQ because Flair wouldn't leave the ring, which was kind of a lame ending for what was a really cool, epic match.
The ending is kind of meh, but it has a chaos and a craziness about it where just there's so much going on. We got two refs. You can feel the heat. Like I said, Heenan almost cries throughout some of his commentary because he's so fucking pissed. I'm blown away by how much I was into this match based on the Wrestling Challenge segment. You felt everything in the Wrestling Challenge segment. Perfect taunted Flair with a woo, and he does the woo throughout the match. It's little stuff it's still a taunt, but when he fucked with him before, it means more. And Flair is just out of his mind, pissed off. I was legit. I went back to being like a 10-year-old kid watching the segment before and the Survivor Series match. I can't recommend this enough. Even after there's a weird promo, Flair and Razor are mad, but then Mr. Perfect does a promo with 2 full-size grocery-bought turkeys. He pulled them out of the wrapper and calls Flair and Razor turkeys, throws them on the floor, and then he picks up a small little chicken, and he calls it Heenan, and then his gun smack thing, he smacks a full-grown chicken out of the camera lens. It's one of those things where I remember why I love this shit, and I remember how exciting it can be. And even in my late 30s, I got goosebumps and was blown away. So if I would have seen this when I was 10, I might have had a heart attack and died. So thank God I didn't see it till now.
By January 93, the newly faced Mr. Perfect made a full return. He was hitting the house shows and was picking up TV wins against the Berserker and our boy Louis Spicolli.
Yeah.
As a continuation of his feud with Ric Flair on the second ever Monday Night Raw, January 18th of 93, Rick was having a match with El Matador, Tito Santana, when Perfect flies out of the back and starts wailing on him. They get broken up by Sergeant Slaughter and WWF officials, go to commercial. When they come back, the fight still going on spills out of the locker room. So Rick eventually gets on the mic with Vince and challenges Mr. Perfect to a loser leaves WWF match next week on Raw, which Mr. Perfect accepts. That Sunday, Mr. Perfect would enter 93's Royal Rumble at number 10, getting in the ring and immediately going for Ric Flair. They pretty much fight each other the entire time until Perfect eliminates Ric Flair. He'd also toss out Skinner and Jerry Lawler before getting eliminated himself by the combination of Ted DiBiase, Coco Beware, and an angry, just eliminated Lawler from the outside.
Ugh.
Following the Rumble on Raw number 3, January 25th, Perfect and Flair would settle their feud once and for all and definitely never wrestle again in a different company that we won't talk about later. This match, it's kind of like the Bockwinkel match. It's 50-50, neither man really like getting control. Perfect takes one of the craziest goddamn corner bumps I've ever seen. He flips like over the top. It was like a Ring of Honor bump.
He like turns upside down and you're
yeah.
like, oh God, no.
Perfect eventually catches Flair in the Perfect Plex, thus ending his WWF career.
And at the when it happens, Heenan flips out and they bleep him for 5 straight seconds. It's just beep.
Yep, and Ric Flair leaves the WWF and honors that commitment forever and would never, ever show his face ever again in the WWF. And when he says that he is done and his career is over, he most certainly will never come back.
Now done with the Nature Boy, Perfect hit the house shows with the Narcissist Lex Luger during the build to WrestleMania 9, and that's who he would face in Las Vegas. And if you remember, Bobby Heenan had been hyping up the Narcissist as even more perfect than Mr. Perfect.
Sorry, Nick. It's the Lexorcist Lark Luger.
At WrestleMania 9, they had a solid match, especially for a How Did This Get Booked card. They end up in like this backslide situation with Lex getting the pin. After which, Lex hits him with his fucking robot arm. Perfect recovers and chases after Lex, who is backstage talking to Shawn Michaels. When Perfect attacks Lex, he gets sneak attacked by HBK, setting up a feud between the two of them. During this run with Shawn, Curt qualified for the first ever televised King of the Ring, having to wrestle Doink 3 times to do so. He'd beat Mr. Hughes at the pay-per-view, but lost to the eventual winner, Bret Hart.
Which actually, the matches with Doink was to kind of get Curt back into ring shape. And I guess in a lot of the house shows, they were going to time limit draws just to kind of get, Curt back into ring shape. Because that's something that I don't think a lot of people understand. And even like indie wrestlers don't really understand as well. There's like a different level of, like, obviously wrestling fans don't understand what ring shape is. You can do all the cardio in the world, be a fantastic athlete, and get blown up right away by wrestling by 5 minutes. But something you might not understand, especially like someone at my level, I'll wrestle twice a weekend, 3 times a weekend, maybe 3 or 4 times a week sometimes, or sometimes it breaks down per month. Maybe I'm only wrestling 8 to 10 to 12 times. Now, if you're a contracted wrestler, you work for WWE, you're wrestling, 3-5 times a week sometimes, especially in this area of WWE, you're working, Monday, maybe even Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You're out on the road a lot, and you're wrestling house show matches, and you're continually out there wrestling, especially even think about territorial wrestling and how those guys will work 7 days a week. And that's a different level of ring shape as well. And especially when you were wrestling in the WWF at that time, that level of ring shape as opposed to getting the 2 a weekend or 2 indie bookings a weekend, that's a different level of ring shape that you have to work your way into, and just pushing the limit every single night, and then wrestling somebody like Matt Bourne that's going to push that out of him continually and get him to where they need him to be, which is a main event level guy, somebody who's going to wrestle 20 minutes or 30 minutes on the house show matches and do that on a regular basis. That's like a different level of shape that they were trying to get Curt to, and kind of at the end of that loop when we got to the King of the Ring, people were like, we finally got Mr. Perfect back.
That's what I think people just forget, that Doink was a clown, but dude could work.
Well, Matt Bourne could work.
Matt Bourne could work.
When you're smoking meth out of a light bulb, you can go all night. Goddammit!
All right, deep dive nerd shit. I did it, so we're gonna get in there. There's the promo at the beginning where Mean Gene basically plays the instigator and gets Curt and Brett arguing about their dads, and Hennig has the famous line of, "Your dad never beat my dad." Well, thanks to CJ and Savannah on the Wrestling Classics message board, I know now Stu Hart didn't ever beat Larry the Axe because they never actually wrestled. Apparently, Larry was only in Stampede February 14th, 16th, and 21st in 1961, and he didn't even wrestle Stu. So when you watch that promo, just watch it with whole new eyes.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Stu was following Larry around going, hey, let me have you. Let me have you. Let me have you. Let me hold that there. Let me have you.
I'm sorry, what, Stu?
Yeah, grab it. Let's get a picture of Luther Lindsay. Only man ever beaten before I leave.
I'm going to go over here.
Come over here.
No.
Hey,
I got to eat.
Let me have you.
Will you just
let me have you?
Let me have
you.
No. I'm going to go over here and eat and leave me alone, please. No, that's my shirt. That's my shirt.
You goddamn mad love. Fuck it.
Okay. I'm locking myself in the bathroom and eating my sandwich. Please get away from the door.
Fucking pisshead.
Curt would head into SummerSlam 93 to cap off his run with Shawn Michaels. Shawn would be accompanied by your boy, Diesel, who would get involved in this match. Perfect catches Shawn with a perfect plex, but Diesel pulls him out of the ring before the 3 count. They fight on the outside. Diesel rams Curt into the ring post, KOs him, getting him counted out. Jake, please explain why SummerSlam 91 is better, and feel free to go into full detail about how much better Bret Hart and Kurt Angle... damn it! Damn it!
You had that whole thing going.
And
Go on. Do you want to start at the beginning, or do you? Or
No, I think this is funny.
No.
This is funny. We're keeping it in.
Jake, please go. Feel free to go into full detail about how much better Bret Hart and Curt Hennig are than Shawn Michaels.
Well, here's the problem.
With your theory.
Like I was saying before, and this is what I was alluding to as well. As good as Dynamite Kid and Curt Hennig fit together, as we discussed in part 1, part 2, these are basically the same sides of the coin coming together. It's the same type of puzzle pieces. Like Shawn Michaels has made a career of making other people look good and doing the most ridiculous bumps, much in the same way that Curt Hennig is. So you have two unselfish performers basically playing off each other, and nobody's really the heater. No, the heel isn't a strong heel. The baby face isn't looking like a strong baby face that can just beat anybody. It's just two guys just trying to put each other over, and that's basically what you have here. And that's why when you have somebody as selfish as Bret Hart in the ring with somebody who's unselfish, it works so well together.
He buried the lead.
That's why.
I would also deep dive nerd stuff. Look up Mr. Perfect versus Shawn Michaels Dark Icy title match, Wrestling Challenge taping 4593. They talk about how Curt is a 2-time IC title winner. Fuck that. He's a 3-time Intercontinental Champion because there's a weird time. It's a dark match. The video's time coded. There's no commentary. There's ref bumps with Fonzie and Earl Hebner, but Curt pins Shawn Michaels cleanly with the perfect plex, gets awarded the belt, and leaves the arena, and nothing is explained or they don't announce anything. There's no commentary. It's like they were playing around with crowd reactions, or it's one of the weirdest things where it's like, that should be a legitimate win, but they just totally ignored it, didn't do anything with it, but it's a really weird oddity you should definitely check out.
Much like in this time period where you had Lex Luger walk out with the Winged Eagle WWF World Title belt, just at a taping, dark, just so Dave Meltzer can write an article about it, saying that Lex is definitely winning the belt at the next pay-per-view.
Right.
So it's just one of those things to fuck with people, but also too, like, this is like right at about the time where the internet's not a big thing and they're still testing stuff out, which is weird because, like, I don't think they tested stuff out in like the late 80s, you know, but at the same time too is a situation that
TV's bigger and they're playing.
Well, I think it's more of a situation of like the houses are sold out every night, and you know the house show business is a big deal, where obviously the house show isn't as big a business anymore, and the idea of concept of dark tapings and try this out and try, I think they're experimenting a little bit more, and it's one of those things like there's not a lot of people watching right now, so not a lot of people are going to see it, but when the arena's fucking sold out for the show, you don't want to like experiment, you want to give them a good fucking show, but where now it's kind of a dip right here, and it's like a situation of like maybe we don't know what's working. Well, we need to figure something out. Well, how are you going to do that? You're going to experiment. You're going to try things. But yeah, it's just interesting in a time where, you know, it's the idea of information's getting out there a little bit more, that this is when you start experimenting, when you could have probably experimented in 86.
Right.
And nobody would have known except in that town. But at the same time, too, you sold out in that town. So do you want to experiment or you want to deliver on your product?
I also had a question. There's a spot in the SummerSlam match where Shawn attacks Curt's back, And they worked the whole thing like, oh, well, Curt used to have a back injury back in the day. He's going after it. And it seems like this happens a lot. It's like, why do they feel the need to go after like a shoot injury instead of making it some other injury that won't really risk anything? Is it just like good for the smarks, or
it's believable?
I mean, yeah.
And then also as a performer, like you can, especially with me, like I have bad knees. You know, if we're gonna fake anything, it's gonna be faking that knee injury, and then I know what it's like to be hobbled on that, so I can get into that headspace. I can do an accurate portrayal of what it's like to have a bad knee because I know what it's hurt and I know how I walked around on it, and I've already done like research and performance that I can.
You've method acted
the shit out of this because it's a real fucking injury. Yeah. And if everybody knows that this was the injury and this was the injury and we go after it, you know, with everything has a degree of danger, but also things have a high degree of safety in things that you do. So you can tell that story a bit more accurately, and then also too, if it's a situation, if it's a kind of a hard shot or kind of a weird awkward landing on the knee, people might question it, and like Tully Blanchard said, all you need is 5% doubt to get them to believe. That's all you need is just them to be like, I know this is all kind of set up, but that looked real, or that was a little snug, or he seemed really mad right there.
No, you nailed it, because there's a moment where Sean comes down on Curt's back, and Curt does it on his shoot like, damn it! Like the way he does is like, it's that 5% where I'm like, oh shit.
And then sometimes even as the other performer that's done that, and you've executed that move as safely as possible, and the performer does that type of sell, it kind of throws you off.
It does.
I've had that happen to me, and I've done that to people before. Where like I'll take a fucking crazy bump, and I'm like, shit. You know, like I don't know.
Check on you right away,
and then the ref, and it's always the fucking ref. The ref is always the biggest fucking mark in the fucking bill. Right? He's always coming over, squeezing my hand. Are you okay? Or you squeeze back if you're okay. Shut the fuck up! I'm selling, motherfucker. I'm playing like I'm fucking knocked unconscious. Guess what? I'm not squeezing your fucking hand.
Do you grab Van Gogh's hand when he's trying to paint a fucking painting? No, you don't.
Off. Guess what? I want you to think I'm fucking hurt. Throw that fucking X up like a goddamn mark that you are. Fuck off. I actually had a referee at the last. I think it was Queens of Combat. I don't think it was $5 Wrestling or a Freight Train show. But I had a referee. He like landed wrong and like hurt his knee, and he fell down and he threw the X up for himself.
Wow.
I was like, of course you fucking mark. You put him a throw of a fucking X. Fuck that. Like everybody knows what that fucking means.
I hope all the wrestlers just immediately laughed at him.
I laughed at the fucking cameraman. And he's just throwing up the X, fucking holding his fucking leg and shit like that. Like that fucking just be like, hey man, I'm fucking hurt. For real. You know, just like don't have to like if somebody's really fucking hurt, like when you throwing the X, what the fuck off? You're gonna do that at an indie show in front of like 100 people? Just run in the back, and be like, hey, he's really fucked up. Go get help now. Like you don't throw the X up because you're looking right at the fucking monitor and the hard camera because they have walkie-talkies to disperse somebody from the ambulance to get out there or the medical staff. That's why they throw the fucking X up. But when you are literally like 10 feet away from the curtain where possible medical staff is, fuck you, just go get them. Don't throw up the fucking X because nobody's fucking pay attention to your fucking X being thrown in the fucking air.
We love all referees? Is that what we're saying?
You're about to get a strike from the referee. Yeah, no more man's cow matches.
They're a minority. We respect them too.
So after the SummerSlam match, it was more episodes of Raw and Wrestling Challenge. But by October of '93, Curt's back was once again too injured to go. He'd be back at WrestleMania 10 on March 20th of 94, where he was a special guest ref for the WWF Championship match between Lex Luger and Yokozuna. We talked about this match on Yoko's episode. It was Lex manhandling Perfect after he was doing the right thing and checking on Cornette and Fuji, who were knocked out in the ring. Curt DQ'd Lex for putting his hands on a ref and was once again a bad guy.
Shout out to Mr. Perfect, not just a ref shirt, but ref pajamas.
Well, I love them fucking Zubas, man. I fucking love it. Well, and why not? Because that was the Road Warriors. That was their company, was Zubas.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Fuck, they got a lot of money off that, right?
Oh yeah, if you see Animal, I just saw him at WrestleCade, And he had an entire carry-on bag or a check bag full of Zubaz pants. I almost bought some. I didn't see any patterns that it kind of spoke to me. Also, too, there's a lot of fucking good brothers that still wear them. I think we're about 2 years away from that fucking phase getting over and away. Like as soon as the good brothers they had their fun with fucking Zubaz and the fucking fanny packs. That's still around, but they've kind of already fucking poked their fun at it and had their look at me, brother. Fuck off. All right, I'm that's almost kind of done. I'm probably about 5 years away from fanny packs being done with them. So as soon as that happens, I will have a fanny pack and I'll have Zubaz when everybody's already fucking look at me, brother. I'm just like those 80 wrestlers. No, motherfucker, I'm wearing this because it's comfortable and it's fucking reliable.
Yeah, that's what people don't understand. You hit a certain age, you don't care.
But there's also, but speaking of not caring in Zubaz, there's a story of, gosh, I think I want to say it was Curt who had the Zubaz. He was wearing them, and of course, Curt's a ribber, but somebody decided they were going to rib Curt, and Curt he had this big hockey bag. And that's where this is before the rolly bags, right. And even in the era of rolly bags, I don't think he had ever rolly bag.
Curt doesn't seem like a rolly bag.
No, but he had a big hockey bag. That's where he that's what he would put. He had to bring on the plane with him. So he had a big hockey duffel bag, kind of like what I got sitting right there, 2 feet away from where our microphones are. And so he was trying to squeeze in the overhead compartment, and then one of the wrestlers just as a fucking goof pulled fucking Curt Zubaz on because they're on a flight and he's wearing Zubaz. This is before dress code. So they just pulled the fucking Zubaz down. What they didn't realize though is Curt doesn't wear any underwear, especially when wearing Zubaz. And the person was pulling him down was on the backside of Curt. So when they were pulling him down, there was a person sitting in the aisle seat.
Nice. Here's a penis.
Who's basically already was uncomfortable because this big wrestler is trying to jam this bag in the overhead compartment. And now all of a sudden his penis is clearly in front of him. There was Zubaz and then there was penis. Now there's no Zubaz. There's just a strict Mr. Perfect dick in front of this guy's face. And you'd think that if that happened, oh shit, Kurt's just no, I'm going to keep fucking with this bag. I'm going to get this bag in and then I'm going to pull my pants up. Not caring, not giving a fuck. I'll get this bag and I'll fix my pants in a second. Excuse me, sir.
After WrestleMania 10, they were going to use this to build another feud with Lex Luger, playing off their previous year's WrestleMania 9 match. However, these plans were scrapped after Kurt's back problems flared up again, and Curt Hennig would not have another match until 1997. He'd take some time off to recover, once again cash in on that good-ass Lloyd's of London money, and he'd take his job back as a commentator, first at Survivor Series 95, and then he would take Jerry Lawler's spot on Superstars, as well as calling various pay-per-views. What are you guys' opinion on Mr. Perfect on commentary?
He was really good at that pencil toss.
Yeah, he was.
He nailed it every time. I don't think he dropped it once.
Yeah, and I remember watching the pay-per-view where he was announced as the special guest commentator. I remember the pay-per-view started and they're like, and now special guest commentator Mr. Perfect. And he came out in the fucking jacket and said sequence with Perfect on it. As a kid, I had remembered a good portion of Mr. Perfect's early run with the WWF and WWE right there, and then seeing him come back, oh, and it was always that excitement, he's gonna get in the ring eventually. But it was super fucking cool. It made me super fucking happy as a child when it happened, and I saw it live when it first happened.
One thing I would definitely check out: look up Stone Cold and Mr. Perfect on commentary versus Savio Vega versus Salvatore Sincor or whatever his name was.
Salvatore Sincere, and put some fucking respect on Tom Brady's name, okay?
I don't know how to say it. How can I put respect on it?
I've let you fucking slide on some people, but if you want me to fucking come in and tell you to show some respect for Tom Brady, I will fucking be that person.
I forgot to bury Jumpin' Jim Brunzell earlier in the episode.
Okay, that's fine. Fuck him. He's doing fine. I mean, he's also a big fan of Bruce Springsteen, much like I am, but, whatever.
Well, that's trivia you don't get anywhere else. But yeah, look up Stone Cold and Mr. Perfect on commentary. It's one of those where Stone Cold does a guest sit in, and then obviously Mr. Perfect and Stone Cold have words, but they jaw back and forth for this entire match. They eventually get up in each other's face because this is early Stone Cold before he was totally over. It's when he's still feuding with Brett. But man, just them jabbering back and forth and the testosterone going nose to nose and JR's in the middle. I'm like, fellas, please. Oh. It's a great fucking segment. You got to look it up. It's on YouTube. Do it.
Fucking early Stone Cold, like when he's just like, I don't give a fuck. Like him, like attacking people in the TV studio.
It feels like a shoot. He buries Mr. Perfect. And you're like, oh shit.
Like there's a YouTube clip floating around that like was coming out of like just Stone Cold just being a fucking animal, like not even a fucking human being that's recognized, just being a fucking animal, like coming into like I'm a fucking heel, but he's getting over. He's like, well, I'll be more of a fucking asshole, like, and it just gets to this such fucking level of just fucking craziness that it's so fucking awesome, just how over the top. And he hadn't like figured out the pitch of Stone Cold Steve Austin, but like it's like just like he's just beating people up in the studio for like, goddamn, what's wrong with the fucking lights? Get the fuck out of my face! What are these papers in your hand for, you moron? Like just insane.
Yeah,
just over the top. Like there's a YouTube that's just like a mashup of all of those. I laugh my fucking ass off every time I see it.
In mid-1996, it was once again time for Mr. Perfect to attempt a comeback, and that's when Hennig would get involved with the game.
Dun, 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 dun.
So Hunter Hearst Helmsley used to bring a different lady to the ring with him every match. They did an angle where Mr. Perfect would come down and steal her, usually causing Trips to get distracted, getting rolled up or whatever.
Hey, Nick, you said angle without Curt in front of it.
Fuck you. While having the Triple H rivalry, Perfect helped Mark Marrow in winning the Intercontinental Championship from Farouk. All this built up to Monday Night Raw, October 21st, 1996, when Mr. Perfect was booked to make his comeback against Triple H. But before the match, Mr. Perfect was attacked by Hunter Hearst Helmsley backstage when he rammed Kurt's knee with one of those rolly luggage things. I don't know.
Yeah, I was trying to put in my notes and I couldn't figure out right what is this fucking thing exactly?
So before their scheduled match, Hunter comes down to the ring, followed by Perfect, who is joined by Mark Marrow, Sable, and Commissioner Gorilla Monsoon. Gorilla says that Perfect is under doctor's orders not to wrestle, so Mr. Perfect suggests Marrow take his place. Hunter says he'll do it as long as Mark puts up the title. He does, and Perfect gets on commentary. At the end of the match, there's a ref bump, which gives Hunter an opening to grab a chair. Perfect flies into the ring and takes the chair. But just when you thought Perfect was going to save the day, we find out that the whole thing was a con, a fraud, a swindle, a downright imposition.
What?
Perfect cracks Marrow with the chair.
No.
Triple H hits a pedigree, uno dos tres, and is awarded the Intercontinental title and, more importantly, a hug from Mr. Perfect himself.
It's a hoax. It was a perfect hoax. It was a plot. Much like the government had a plot to lock me up forever and keep me from running a billion-dollar industry. But unfortunately...
Vince, shit, dude, we're on air.
All the more reason for me to. Let's bring Trish Stratus out here a couple years early and make her strip down. So I'd be like, this is what every politician does.
Cut the truck.
Following this, Perfect would start being Helmsley's corner man, but in just a couple of weeks, Mr. Perfect would leave the WWF. So apparently, WWF had fucked with Kurt's insurance policy either directly by sending them a memo narking on him, or indirectly with Lloyd's of London snooping around hearing the rumors of Kurt's return. All that happened as Vince and Kurt were in contract discussions, already having a lot of trouble agreeing on money.
And sadly, one of the biggest things we missed out of is that Kurt didn't get to continue in the Milton Bradley Karate Fighters Holiday Tournament, which is basically a Rock'em Sock'em Robots thing that existed back then. Kurt won the first round against Phineas Godwin when he distracted him by saying, "Hey, Phineas, look over there. It's Dolly Parton." As soon as Phineas looked for Dolly Parton, Kurt hit the button, kicked Phineas's fighter's head off, and he moved on to the second round, but we'll never know. I'm sure Kurt would have won the whole thing, but instead, Sonny won the fucking tournament.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she slept with Doc Hendricks to win it, so she was in it to win it, kids.
With contract negotiations breaking down between Curt and Vince, he began talking with Eric Bischoff and WCW, who apparently offered him $750,000. This led to Curt no-showing some autograph sessions, a Hall of Fame dinner, and the '96 Survivor Series. With both sides not willing to work it out, Curt waited out his WWF contract and went on to work for WCW. Curt Hennig signed with WCW mid-97 and would debut on the tail end of June 30th, 97's episode of Monday Nitro. For the main event, Lex Luger, the Giant, and DDP were facing the NWO's Hall, Nash, and Macho Man in a big old clusterfuck of a match. NWO comes down to interfere. In the chaos, emo Sting drops down from the ceiling. Was it the real Sting? Was it the fake Sting? Does it fucking matter? This is WCW, a place where mankind's dreams have been ravished by depravity and left to toil in the vast darkness beneath the crushing weight of misery. WCW, where God himself has turned his back on the forlorn masses. In this insatiable pit of despair, over the stench of rot and the blood-curdling yelps of the damned, there is but one maddening, unwavering sound echoing from the dank, musty walls like the tick of a clock counting down the seconds to our cold, heartless demise. Bro, 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 bro.
Thank you for Dostoevsky and H.P. Lovecraft writing the TV guide summary for WCW Monday Night Nitro.
I thought you were going to burst out into the WCW Nitro thing. We're live in the Mall of America. I'm Eric Bischoff. This is Steve Mongo McMichaels. I'm joined by Bobby the Brain Heenan as well. Welcome, everybody, to WCW Nitro.
We're going to cut in for a live Nitro party. Look at them having fun with their Papa Johns.
Oh, who do we got showing up to the building right as the show goes on air? Because that's just something that happens. Is we don't have a curfew. We call even though we're filming a live television broadcast, and these people have been here all day. They're now pulling up in a white Hummer.
As the chaos was going on, Curt walks down the fucking ramp as the harbinger of the downtrodden. Tony Schiavone hits us with a, "Sorry fans, we're all out of time."
It is, when I rewatch this, it is definitely one of the best chaotic Nitro end of Schiavone's. We gotta go! Because you get Sting coming down whipping ass. Curt shows up for the first time, and then Raven jumps the guardrail to square off with Scott Hall.
Mayhem.
It's like, there's too many fucking people to comprehend. And then it's just shown, he's like, yeah, it's about to get good. We're off.
Yeah, because Schiavone's got his, it's Sting! Is it Sting? Is it sure Sting? I'm not sure Sting. Oh my gosh, it's Raven! We're all out of time, folks.
Vincent got death dropped. We're out of here.
I always thought it'd be funny is they're doing all this shit on TV, and as soon as they cut the air, they just stop.
Yeah, to the back. Kayfabe is out the door.
All right, guys, we're clear.
And they all flip off the fans as they walk out.
So Curt Hennig's first match with the company took place at 97's Bash at the Beach, a pay-per-view headlined by Lex Luger and the Giant taking on Hogan and Dennis Rodman.
You said it like it was the normalest thing in the world.
DDP had been teasing a mystery partner for his match with Hall and Macho Man, and guess who it was?
Who?
It was Curt Hennig.
Favorite little moment of this, Curt comes out and they're like, Schiavone's like, I can't tell who it is, and he goes, it's Curt Hennig. Like he does it, he realizes it is, but he doesn't get excited till the second his last name. It's like it's Schiavone kind of like brain farting, but it's gorgeous.
Well, he might have been trying to say Kurt Angle, just like Nick has last couple intros of some segments.
See, now you gotta leave the screw ups in because now the jokes for him. Yeah, you know how.
Very. So Scott Hall gets tagged in with Curt, so I think that's a cool moment. We have them facing off in yet another company. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's true.
For Kurt's first match in literal years, he looked fucking awesome. He
did.
moved good. It looked like he never took a day off. Towards the end of the match, they were trying to do a spot where DDP holds down the rope and Macho throws Curt over and falls out, causes a beef, but Curt didn't quite make it over. So Macho just kicked him to the outside and Curt just snaps and clubs the shit out of DDP.
It's like they tried to play it since he was holding the ropes, he couldn't bounce, so they just hurt his back.
Yeah.
Or something. It's weird.
And with this, Curt Hennig, he was officially back in the game. He'd head into 97's Road Wild to take on DDP, where he won with his new and improved Hennigplex. Then it was time for his first real angle. The NWO and the Four Horsemen would both try to recruit Curt, with Curt deciding to go with the Horsemen, taking the spot of the retiring Arn Anderson.
Not just a spot, Nick.
My spot.
Well, and it's so weird is that like they didn't know really for sure what Arn Anderson's future was at the time, and they were doing this whole angle like, is Arn going to come back? Is he not? And then like, okay, it's pretty for sure and clear that he's not coming back. So we're gonna put Curt in this spot, and Arn is going to cut this amazing promo, this real professional wrestling moment, and then we're just going to fucking shit all over that, and we're going to fucking ruin it at War Games, and there's going to be no hope for the Four Horsemen or the good guys in the world, even though we just had this big emotional high. We're going to take that all fucking away and then not give any return for all of this emotion that's been put out into the world, and I know it wasn't planned that way, but it was something real, and they could have been the building block to something else, but it's just like, we built this, we're going to knock this down, and we're never, ever going to come back to what this emotion was, and it's an emotion that people still remember and think about to this day, but we're never going to come back to it. We're never acknowledge it really happened, because we're just going to knock this shit over. And I know we're just trying to keep the NWO strong, but can't we just, like, build something else off of this? It's just like, no, we'll just fucking nothing. Fuck it. Yeah. Fuck you. And fuck you for watching.
Why have legitimate conflict against one team against another who you really think could maybe defeat them, when you can just build one team up so much that the other
nothing else matters?
Yeah, it's just like like conflict, competition, one strong villain, one strong hero. Why do you not try to create that? You just whatever. Well,
they weren't going to, but it fell in their lap. And I get that your plans and where you were going, and there were a lot of things moving, and there were a lot of pieces. I've heard Eric Bischoff talk about it before. I've talked about Arn talk about it before.
Well, Arn said that he didn't know till the day of War Games too. That's what's fucking insane.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, man, like you gotta recognize how special that moment was, and you gotta think like, okay, well, we need to change a little bit of course here. Like we need to. I'm not saying that you don't turn Curt, and I'm not saying you don't fucking do what you did at War Games, but maybe you have some sort of comeuppance for Curt for him turning his back. I mean, if not for the NWO, but maybe Curt, you know, like get some sort of retribution for what happened. Which, at the same time, too, Flair is leaving, too, so there is that problem thing. But, you know, you still got Dean, you still got Chris, you know. Why can't Curt get his comeuppance with either one of those? With Arn in the corner or something to make it special, to not just be like, yeah, we had this really genuine moment with Arn Anderson handing the spot to Curt, and Curt just threw it in the fucking trash, which makes him as a fucking heel right away. Yeah. But where's that baby face comeuppance?
Arn talks about it, and I just feel like you have a strong Four Horsemen for the first time in a while, and it's just that force, that energy finally going up against the NWO. That'd be something to tune into, like another strong faction to really go at him, and it's just like, nah, go fuck yourselves.
Well, I don't have, like I said, I don't have a I don't have a problem with them fucking you that hard, but if you're gonna fuck somebody that hard, there better be a big fucking return, and there wasn't. So.
Sure. And, to catch anyone up that doesn't know, this is Fall Brawl 97 in Winston-Salem, where Curt and the Horsemen would take on the NWO's Nash, Bagwell, Conan, and Six, who I once dog set Lula for.
Once? Like you didn't do a good enough job, so you don't get to do it anymore?
And this is the big swerve that a lot of people say killed Winston-Salem forever, where Curt cracks open Ric Flair's noggin with the cage door.
I mean, I will give it to it. I remember watching this live. This was, I think Road Wild 97 was my first WCW pay-per-view, getting back into it. And then I remember watching this. And when this all went down, this was one of those moments where it was just like, oh, my young, fragile mind. It's like, oh, shit, no. Like, you felt like you were watching something special, even though it was terrible. Rewatching it, it was still kind of traumatic. But fuck, they could have done something really special.
So the next night on Monday Nitro in Charlotte, Curt would come out to that good-ass NWO music and challenge Mongo for the U.S. title. Curt goes straight for Mongo's injured knee, which he had 9 knee surgeries on in the NFL, and that's how many times 50 Cent got shot.
Random trivia from Nicholas Olesa. I finally said it. Are you happy?
Yeah, it sounds weird coming out. Don't call me that anymore. Mongo goes for a football tackle, but wrong sport, you dumb bitch. Curt dives out of the way, and a Henningplex later, we have a new champion of the colonies.
And it's great. It's basically Tony's like, oh God, we're off there, and it's just over. Jake's in
Dumb-
recovery.
You dumb bitch.
Who's an apologist for Mongo now, Jake? Yeah. Laughing at his dumb ass.
My goal is to pop Jake once an episode, and I got him.
Yep.
And this one actually stays in on like the last one.
The last 10.
The last 10 was very problematic.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah, that would not be good.
No, you dumb bitch.
So, Curt would hold on to the title for about 3 months, stopping off at September 29th's Nitro to Perfectplex the fucking Giant. And Curt, who is one of the biggest heels in the world at the moment because he had just murdered Ric Flair, gets a pop from it because it's just that fucking cool.
It is a spectacle. It's not just like, oh, he did it. He nailed the shit out of it. It is
perfect to
flawless.
say
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I mean, goddamn puns. We had too much room for puns on these episodes. But it is flawless. It is seamless. He moves him over like it's nothing. And then he gets the pop on the move, and then the Giant gets a pop on kicking out of it. It's gorgeous.
Almost equally as cool. The fucking Big Show kips up after.
Yeah.
like it was like he's a 120 pounder. It was fucking nuts.
Good shit.
He'd also go to Halloween Havoc and get a DQ win over Ric Flair.
The DQ is when Flair wraps his U.S. belt around Hennig's head while he's in the Tree of Woe and stomps the shit out of his face. I give points for that spot. Never seen that one before.
He'd meet Flair once again at World War III, this time in a no DQ match, and they brawl all over the arena. Rick eventually crushes Curt's leg between a chair and the title, but that allowed Curt to be able to reach the title while he was in the figure four, who he knocks Flair out with it and covers him for the win. Curt's U.S. title run would come to an end at Starrcade 97 when he ate a big old diamond cutter from DDP.
Goddamn, the Diamond Cutter was over.
In the fall of 97, Curt was joined by his childhood best friend, Rick Rude, in the NWO. But at this point, NWO and WCW basically just was getting swallowed up, so Curt and Rick would team up and do their best to stay afloat in 98. Curt kicked off 98 feuding with the Hart Foundation, facing Bret Hart at 98's Uncensored, taking the L to the Sharpshooter. And just to put things in perspective, SummerSlam 91, 4 stars from old David, which is honestly too low.
Yeah,
Uncensored got 2.5 stars, which is honestly too high.
You nailed that, Dick. Well done.
The next pay-per-view, Curt would beat the British Bulldog at Spring Stampede in less than 5 minutes with Rick Rude comedically handcuffed to Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
Aw.
In mid-98, Curt would once again take time off with an injury, and while he was gone, the NWO split into red and white. Hennig and Rude would join Wolfpack, which at the time was a face faction.
I forgot all this stuff.
I could have sworn they were on NWO Hollywood. Like I thought they were on the white and black, and I thought they were white and black for life.
I thought they were on Latino World Order.
That's because you're all about to fucking get swerved. Rude and Curt, never one for commitment or babyfacery, turned on fellow Wolfpack member Conan after his loss to Goldberg at Great American Bash 90.
Just the thing you said's funny.
Now back in NWO Hollywood, it's so exhausting. Curt got a world title shot at Bill Goldberg at Bash at the Beach 98, a pay-per-view headlined by Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman versus DDP and Karl Malone, who for some fucking reason didn't have the basic goddamn human decency to give us an actual mailman gimmick.
Yeah, right?
And I know wrestling's fake, but do you expect me to believe Karl Malone could be in a tag team with anyone besides John Stockton? Kiss my ass.
He's got his mailman bag. He reaches into the mailman bag. What does he pull out? A fist, and he punches you right in the fucking face.
His finisher could have been called Going Postal. There's just so many things.
That's an ECW Karl Malone finisher name.
But instead, he's just a black DDP. Like that's just basically like
2 guys without NBA Finals wins.
Mm-hmm. There you go. That's their name. No NBA's final wins. Yeah, I like that. I actually, believe it or not, this pay-per-view I watched with my high school basketball coach at his house.
just him, Jake?
No. His son was a big wrestling fan as well, so he invited me over. But I remember old Bob Miller just being like, what the fuck is this?
I remember
he was unimpressed with the wrestling, and he was just as unimpressed with the basketball players that were doing professional wrestling.
I remember watching Sports Center the night this went down, and all the fucking elitist Sports Center commentators shitting on Karl Malone for doing pro wrestling, and just thinking, you guys are just assholes.
Yeah. And now they cover it. Fucking
Yeah, right? You fucking...
the weirdest part about watching that match is they're like fucking talking about like rebounding stats and shit on commentary. I'm like, what are you doing? He's in a wrist lock right now, and he's like the leading NBA rebounder.
Wait a minute, fucking Jim Ross didn't commentate for WCW at that time.
It wasn't a
He was talking about how many tackles and sacks somebody got on the other network.
That would be good, though. Hey, JR, I think he played basketball. Oh. I don't do basketball.
He was on scholarship for basketball at University of Tennessee, and that's all he'll ever say about basketball.
Yeah.
But he'll get down to the nitty-gritty.
I'm a pigskin, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, at Bash at the Beach, Curt took on Goldberg in a 3-minute and 50-second match. That's called a Goldberg Broadway, baby.
I actually felt like Curt had a chance. I thought I was going to see like a 10-minute Goldberg.
When he smashes the leg, when he does the little...
I don't know. I just coming into it, I'm like,
going into it.
I think Curt Hennig's going to get a good match out of Goldberg, and then they just did him like that. And I'm like, ooh, fuck. That was
he got over
good.
3 minutes, which is something.
Spoiler, Curt loses. In the fall of 98, Hennig began feuding with the Horseman, Dean Malenko. Curt and Rick Rude would head over to Fall Brawl to face Dean, and Dean tries to win the match with a perfect plex, but it gets broken up by Rick Rude for the DQ. And in this match, Curt is wearing a very heavy knee brace, and he's moving pretty gingerly. I'm not sure how much of that was selling, how much of that was shoot, but after this match, Curt would take more time off TV to recover from his knee injury. Curt would be back to re-up his feud with Flair at Starrcade 98, where he helped Bischoff beat Ric Flair by sliding him some brass knuckles. Hennig then joined forces with Barry Windham to take on Flair and his son David, who was making his wrestling debut at Sold Out 99. Curt takes the pin from David Flair after Arn Anderson hits him with a tire iron. So in 99, the finger poke of doom happened. NWO reunited. There was an unofficial B team, which Curt, kayfabe, and likely Shoot was salty about. So the NWO beat him up at an airport.
The best moment in this little angle is they start beating the shit out of Curt, and Bryan Adams is like, "Why are you beating up Curt? He's like a brother to us. Why are you doing this?" And then Nash just goes, "Just business." And then 10 seconds later, Bryan Adams is beating the shit out of Curt. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Goddamn, motherfucker.
I didn't notice that. That's fucking hilarious.
There's a YouTube comment that brings it up. I'm not I wasn't a brilliant spot, but go back and watch it, and it's beautiful. Brian is just so upset, and then it's just one word's like, oh.
So, free from the shackles of the NWO, Curt officially became a tag team with Barry Windham, and they were placed in a double elimination tournament for the vacant WCW Tag Team Championships. They'd face the Four Horsemen, Dean Malenko, and tag team partner Redacted at Super Brawl 9. So, entering the match, the Horsemen had already lost once, while Perfect and Windham were undefeated. That meant Curt's team had to lose twice, and the Horsemen once. Malenko tapped Barry with the Texas Cloverleaf, which right away sent them into match number 2. While the ref was trying to regain order and get the guys into a rest period, Windham choked the fuck out of Team Malenko with his pants belt. They pinned him to end the second match, making Curt and Barry WCW champions. So that's 2 belts for Curt and WCW. That's pretty solid. Hennig and Windham held the tag team titles for about a month before they lost them to Malenko and Chris in a lumberjack match the following month at Uncensored, after Arn Anderson once again hit Curt with a tire iron.
Good.
At some point, you have to turn to Arn Anderson and be like, dude, I'm not a fucking car.
Well, I'm real sorry to hear that, but you don't like being referred to as a car tire. See, I'm very upset about that. I've got a bit of reputation that when the AA enforcer Arn Anderson comes to the ring with a tire iron, I'll just be swinging it carelessly. Maybe you'll be in the way of that tire iron. Maybe you won't. It's just you'll never know. You'll never see it coming. So I'd keep my head on a swivel if I was you.
AA, you might even call me AAA.
Jesus fucking Christ. So now we get to the part the people paid their money to hear about. We charge for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
May of 99, Curt Hennig formed the West Texas Rednecks with Bobby Duncan Jr., Barry, and Kendall Windham, which was one of Curt's favorite runs of his career.
He always wanted to do that cowboy gimmick, man.
This led to a feud with rap music itself. So Curt was on commentary during a Nitro when he said he hated a commercial Conan was in due to the rap music in it because rap is what?
Crap.
Yeah. This led to Conan coming down and fighting with Curt. In the following weeks, Curt and friends would once again get into it with Conan and an unmasked 13-year-old Rey Mysterio Jr., leading to a match between Curt and Bobby Duncombe taking on Conan and Rey at 99's Great American Bash. So the pay-per-view starts with famed 90s rapper and former Charlotte Hornet, Master P.
If you weren't going to say it, I was going to be really pissed off at you.
Getting out of his limo with his posse. They're greeted by Curt, who says the words, "Bowdy, bowdy." Curt says he's a big fan, asks for an autograph, so Master P signs a CD for him, which Curt breaks.
Because he knew how worthless CDs were in the future.
He was a psychic.
And later that night, Curt would come out to his new theme music, Rap is Crap, a song written by Jimmy Hart, performed by Curt, and actually got some airplay on country music stations.
That just wasn't kayfabe.
That's goddamn right, baby. I wrote another hit song. Remember me? I was back in the Gingers. And, oh, baby, I wrote this once for you, Curt. Oh, it's very, very clever. Listen, it's rap is crap.
So, Great American Bash starts out with Master P and the No Limit Soldiers in the front row. Tony Schiavone accidentally calls him Mr. P at one point, and I bet he was like, "Please, Mr. P is my father."
There you go.
So, Barry Windham comes down. Fuck you. So, Barry Windham comes down to interfere. So, No Limit Soldier Swole, who was pro wrestler Randy Thornton, trained by Brad Riggins, jumps the railing. He nails Duncombe, causing him to get pinned by Rey Mysterio up past his bedtime.
And what a time to attack rap music. Yeah, like Curt obviously was waiting for the proper time. Like if he tried to attack rap music during the time of NWA or even LL Cool J, Cool Mo D.
You did.
You did. It's not Pac, Biggie, but we're already removed from that. Like he's fighting the Maces of the world. He's fighting... I mean, he could probably stop a very early Nelly if possible, like and Ja Rule. Like he could snuff it all out right here. This is the most crucial time of rap music.
Mystical might have fucked him up though.
Mystical was a little bit later. This is the optimal. This is the optimal time.
This
is the optimal time to attack rap music. This is the optimal time.
Less than a month later, the Rednecks lost to the No Limit Soldiers once again in an elimination tag team match at Bash at the Beach 99. Conan, Rey Mysterio, Swole, and B.A. would face the West Texas Rednecks. And this is obviously the legendary 8-star match you always hear about. Curt is the last man standing against Rey and Swole, taking the pin from Mysterio after he swan dives off Swole's shoulder. It was actually a cool spot.
My highlight of the match is when it begins and there's a drunk redneck right next to the mic camera screaming, "Rap is crap! Rap is crap!" That and Conan wearing a Tim Hardaway Heat jersey.
Yeah, I must have brought that up.
Those are my highlights.
Tim Hardaway had the best fucking crossovers.
Fuck you, Allen Iverson.
So the West Texas Rednecks were actually getting fucking over as hell as baby faces with the Southern WCW fans. But instead of just turning the No Limit Soldiers heel and having an epic feud between two red-hot factions, WCW just dropped the angle. The Rednecks make their final pay-per-view appearance at Road Wild, losing to the Revolution in a 6-man tag match.
Do we know why, or just because WCW's bad at stuff?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
they were like, well, they were supposed to be heels, and
you guys like them.
God forbid we sell a bunch of merch. It says Rap Scrap on it. From here, Curt did an angle where if he lost, he had to retire, but he did lose. But swerve, bro, he didn't really have to retire. Shit's crazy. Curt bounced around, mostly putting over younger guys.
The Sean Stasiak perfect one gimmick. Just watch the clip they do of Sean Stasiak trying to set the world record for free throw shooting, and then Curt beats the shit out of him. That's the only thing worth the shit.
Curt Hennig left WCW after his contract expired in the summer of 2000. With some newfound free time, Curt caught up with his friends and his family, did a lot of golfing and hunting and fishing, which he loved to do. He also had a big hand in training Brock Lesnar. He'd travel the world wrestling, doing the normal stuff like wrestling Dennis Rodman one-on-one in an Australian Outback match for the iGeneration World Heavyweight Championship.
The best part of this, they recorded it in July and it aired in December. That's how you get them.
Well, it's the rights, and like the people that put it on were like these big music producers. I believe it was the same company that did that Hulk Hogan Australian tour where he wrestled Ric Flair every night. Oh, shit. And like the video rights to that haven't been released for several years because of that. So like that the company and the television company that produced it and stuff like, so there's an issue with rights and then the legal battle that you have to go through to get that. So obviously they probably had to go through that hurdle, but this was during the time of that. But I love how serious Curt Hennig is and all the angles and the promos that he does for Dennis Rodman, and it's just like he's so serious, it's so legit, it's so top notch, and then he just says Dennis Rodman. I'm like, what? Excuse me? That's not wrestling.
I was up you till the last two words
where you mentioned a basketball player.
It's a goofy match, but it's fun to watch. It's on YouTube, right? I recommend.
There's a version that's even longer that has German commentary. So if you want to go for true what the fuck, watch it with German commentary.
Or How Did This Get Booked? It's one of the early episodes of How Did This Get Booked.
Oh shit.
Later that year, he went to Puerto Rico where he won World Wrestling Council's title. Hennig would be part of Excitement Wrestling Federation. Excitement spelled with an X, even though we're not in the 90s anymore.
Whoa.
It seemed like a fed full of ex-WCW guys as he'd wrestle Hulk Hogan, Buff Bagwell, and Vampiro.
Everybody who didn't get picked up by WWF when WCW closed. That's basically what that promotion was. Jimmy Hart had a big hand in it. I think Brian Knobbs had a big hand in it.
Yeah, they
which is probably why it wasn't successful. It was just like, who's the most responsible person here of everybody we got? Let's go Brian Knobbs.
Nasty boy.
Like, this was the list I had: Piper, Mean Gene, Shivani, Sable, Vampiro, Hogan, Johnny B. Bad, and Kurt. This is the hodgepodge of.
And I think this was one of those guys that got everybody together in a locker room meeting before they had their first ever match or taping, and the guy just stood up and said, we're going to put Vince McMahon out of business. This was like during the era where somebody would step up and be like, we're going to put Vince McMahon out of business. We haven't done jack shit, but we're going to put him out of business. Yep. Especially now that WCW is closed, we are going to put him out of business. As opposed to just running shows at the Nashville Fairgrounds.
You got to admire the balls, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the money that it took to lose.
That promotion went under when WWF bought all their major talent, including Curt Hennig himself, which leads to ... During the build-up to 2002's Royal Rumble, it was announced that Curt Hennig would be returning, and Mr. Perfect entered the Royal Rumble at number 25 as Triple H and Stone Cold were the only two in the ring. And Curt, again, looked great. He held his own. He fought with Stone Cold before getting tossed out by the eventual winner, Triple H.
It was pretty fun. I rewatched it a couple days ago, and just seeing the reaction he got, it made me happy.
Curt's performance, along with the positive crowd reaction, got Mr. Perfect a full-time contract with the WWF, which was just months away from becoming the WWE. Curt would mostly get used to put over young guys. He feuded a little bit with RVD and Stone Cold, which is pretty cool.
He hit the perfect plex on the Big Show again. Not as well, and Big Show probably not as athletic, but they still hit it. He beat Brock Lesnar twice on house shows, and the thing that we just never got, he started a feud with Brian Urlacher of the Chicago Bears, and it never came to be.
Hennig's final TV match of this run would be May 6th edition of Heat, where he beat Tommy Dreamer because May 7th, 2002, the plane ride from hell happened.
Woo!
So on the plane ride from hell, apparently there a lot of drunkenness was happening, and it led to Brock Lesnar and Mr. Perfect fucking wrestling each other amateur style on the plane, slamming into the emergency exit, scaring the shit out of everyone post 9/11.
That thing's pressurized. That thing's fine. That ain't going anywhere. I think my favorite rumored thing to happen on the plane ride from hell was Michael Hayes, Doc Hendricks, attempting to urinate on Linda McMahon's head. That was my favorite.
He still has a job.
No, everybody, like, was it Hall got fired, Hennig got fired, Hendricks apparently did all types of shit.
Michael P.S. Hayes got elevated.
Yeah.
He's elevated.
Yeah. He's got info.
He's got to.
He's got to have blackmail info.
Well, what's funny is I think we asked Ric Flair about this, and he talked about another trip. And like, Are we talking about a different?
No.
Like this is.
Oh no.
This is just the one that like ruined all the fun. Apparently, there's all kinds of shit, and we talked about like Kurt's just wanger being out in somebody's face on a commercial flight. So, can you just imagine a regular fucking plane ride with Jim Danville Neidhart in 2001? What that would have fucking been like?
Following the plane ride from hell, Curt would be fired from the WWE. He'd hit the Indies. He won his last wrestling title, defeating Bruno Sassi December 14th for the Future of Wrestling Heavyweight title, a title also held by Loki and Norman Smiley.
2 things from Kurt's indie days around here you should check out. Curt has a match with X-Pac, which this time he's called Six-Pac. It's just, God, 1, 2, 3, X, 6-Pac kid. I don't know. It's getting ridiculous. But Heenan actually comes out and introduces it. Heenan's at an indie show. He fucks around on the mic. It's one of those small, intimate shows with just nothing respect and love. It's a really cool thing to watch. It's on YouTube. But then also, one thing I got to put over super fucking hard is it's just on YouTube titled Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig Shoot Interview. And it's him on this local TV show called Channel Surfing with the host Lisa. It's June 2002. It's right after the plane ride from hell. And it's Curt just kind of shooting the shit about what he might do after getting fired, what his options are. And it's the host is cool. Curt is cool as shit. When everybody talks about how warm and fun-spirited and just a good dude Curt is, it comes across more than anything I did research on and watched. It's like a 10-minute clip. It's so cool, and it hurts more to see Curt go, but you got to watch this. It's so damn good.
In late 2002, Curt would make his debut in TNA.
The only thing I'm going to say is Curt gets introduced by Road Dogg, who says, "We don't live in a perfect world." Or do we, baby? He introduces Curt Hennig with a Austin Powers impersonation. I went back and listened to it twice, and he fucking does it, and that's how far Mike Myers has gotten in society and needs to stop. That's all I got. It's fucking horrible.
In TNA, Curt would work against Jeff Jarrett, Ron Killings, or R-Truth, if you're smart, if you're a smart mark.
ANC!
And he wrestled his last recorded match on January 8th, 2003, defeating David Flair in an axe handle on a pole match.
Well, the fact that his last match is his dad's nickname, kind of sad.
In February, Curt would head to Florida for a match at the Florida State Fair as part of Jimmy Hart's All-Star Wrestling, February 10th, 2003. That match would sadly never happen. On February 10th, 2003, Curt Hennig was found dead in Tampa, Florida, in his hotel room at the age of 44. The Hillsborough County medical examiners declared it an acute cocaine intoxication as the cause of death. Curt's death sent brutal shockwaves through the industry. This wasn't some down-and-out wrestler wasting away, hopped up on pills in his last $20. This was Mr. fucking Perfect. You know, Curt was in decent shape. He had money. He had a great home life. And even at 44, had tons of upside and potential in wrestling. By all accounts, Curt loved his beer. He partied some. He smoked some weed. But this seemed to be just a one-off freak of nature, Murphy's Law catastrophe that took one of the greatest wrestlers to ever do it off the planet.
This is the weird thing. You probably think that means overdose, and I did too when I first got into it. But yeah, I think, Nick, it's an acute drug cocaine intoxication. And it's basically that you do cocaine and your heart needs so much blood and the blood vessels overreact, and there's kind of electrical shock where you go into cardiac arrest, and it just kind of just pops the heart. Big for me, sidebar, Len Bias, who was going to be one of the best basketball players ever, got drafted second by the Celtics, was going to be basically the next Michael Jordan. And hearing the story, Len Bias died of the exact same thing. He did cocaine. It wasn't an overdose. It wasn't anything like that. He just did cocaine, and it just mixed bad with him, and it fucking killed him. And hearing this story at basketball camp when I was like 10 years old, like scared the shit out of me. And that was the best DARE program ever. And it's just, Curt had the same thing. It sounds like he was recreational or socially. He wasn't, a fiend or the way it comes off. And he just did cocaine one. Just his heart just gave out. And it's sad that it just can take you that fucking quick.
To end on a more positive note, in 2007, Curt was put in the WWE Hall of Fame. He was introduced by one of his best friends, Wade Boggs, who told the story of how they were on a hunting trip when Wade tried to hop a barbed wire fence. He fell, got his legs tangled. Curt got him out, carried him Forrest Gump and Bubba style back to the truck and got him to a hospital. And the doctor said that Wade would have 100% bled out if Curt didn't do that.
And I don't care what Bret Hart says. Wade Boggs invented the Wolfpack hand sign. So fuck you, Bret.
Curt's family accepted the Hall of Fame induction on Curt's behalf, with his wife giving a pretty emotional speech. His parents were there, his children, including Joe Hennig, who the kids know as Curtis Axel. Also, Macho Man dedicated a track to Mr. Perfect on his rap CD called Perfect Friend. It was written by Lanny Poffo and is objectively the greatest song ever recorded.
It's a pretty good fucking album, I'm not gonna lie. It's for rap album at the time, it fits right in. I mean, better than some of the rap albums Master P produced, but I digress.
Barry and Master P.
So, final thoughts on the perfect Curt Hennig.
In a weird way, Curt was my first ever heel. I probably started watching around 89, 90 when he was in the big feud with Hogan, just when he was flawless, he was arrogant, nobody could touch him, but he was perfect. The gum slap, the towel, Heenan wiping his brow mid-match, all that stuff, just like, I hate this guy. Why is he thinks he's so good? He's not so good. I could be that good. And just that first time where you kind of, like, I hated him, but then I always wanted to see him. And that was my first really acknowledgement of that these guys are good at this, even though I kind of hate them. That was huge to me. I remember Curt's one of the Mr. Perfect's a big one. My mom still remembers Curt and Mr. Perfect because when I used to watch then, and that's important to me too. A couple of the things you just need to see because I just deep dive into stuff. Rick Martel does a short shoot where he talks about Curt's character, how Curt maybe came off arrogant earlier, but then he thanked Rick Martel for kind of calling him out on his bullshit. That's on YouTube. Last Call with Scott Hall. Scott Hall does a Curt Hennig tribute that's really good. You can really feel it, and Scott Hall's a funny dude, just talking about Curt and how unselfish Curt was in the ring, not just physically of working his ass off and then letting Scott come in 8 months green and beat ass, but just on the road, teaching him stuff, spreading his knowledge, which apparently at that time was people held stuff close to their vest and didn't do it. And apparently Curt learned that from Piper up in Portland and wanted to pass on knowledge to get everybody else good. And I'm just going to close with the old genius Lanny Poffo wrote a really good poem about Curt's death, and we're going to finish on this. We remember Mr. Perfect. He was always in command. His greatness was so obvious that all could understand. He brightened up a locker room. He made the time go by. He had a personality, gregarious, not shy. He really was perfection, but now he's gone away. We're lucky to have known him, and we'll miss him every day. And as we know, Curt was a huge fucking country music fan, and he loved to sing Merle Haggard at karaoke. So I promise right now to Curt up in heaven that next time I get drunk at a karaoke bar, I'm singing some Merle fucking Haggard.
When we first started this podcast, I wanted to cover Macho Man and Dusty and Eddie and Tent and Owen Hart. But from day one, I've been like building to cover Mr. Perfect, and I hope it went well. I hope we did him justice. Mr. Perfect was a very important wrestler to me, kind of for the same reasons as Micah. Like when I was a kid, still real to me, damn it, full Mark mode. Watching Mr. Perfect was the first time I ever saw a bad guy and thought, holy shit, he's like good at pro wrestling. Like it was the first time I ever wanted a heel to win a match. Like he was too cool, he was too good, he was too fun. Like whatever it is, whatever charisma is, Curt had all of it. I don't think I've ever held a small towel in my hand and not thrown it behind my back and caught it. Like from my basketball days to the kitchen towels in restaurant. I'm more of a mint guy now, but I had a solid 2 decades of spitting out my gum and smacking it. Like I did it a couple of weeks ago, and it still feels very cool. You can't even describe how good Mr. Perfect was. It's like fucking good food or good music. You just have to experience it, or you're not gonna get it. Like he didn't just have a great drop kick. He had the fucking best drop kick. He wasn't just a good seller and bumper. He's one of the best, like up there with Flair and Harley. All his matches made sense. They were smooth. They flowed. Like sometimes I'll see a stand-up comic do a set and there's no like fat on his jokes, not an extra word or a flubbed line. Like that was Mr. Perfect every match. Like it was a life-changing Conan set that everyone's talking about the next day. Curt loved spreading knowledge and like putting younger guys over, so he was like helpful for the business. He helped mold Scott Hall and Shawn Michaels. Like who knows where they would be without Curt Hennig. He was there to help Triple H in one of the biggest moments of his early career after Triple H had just got buried for the curtain call. You know, Kurt's there to give him a little pop or, you know, be part of the angle at least. He was a bit of a troll in the back, but by all accounts, he was like a good man who loved his family. He was good to his friends. And losing Mr. Perfect put us in a worse version of reality. Like no matter how good wrestling gets, no matter what heights it gets, the work rate, blah, 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 at its absolute peak with the best workers and the best matches on the best card, pro wrestling will forever be slightly less than what it could have been had Curt Hennig been around to guide it.
Of all the episodes we've done, you know, I've always done just some sort of form of research or listen to a podcast or a shoot review. But this is the first one that I've done where I've like, yeah, I don't need to do any research. Because Mr. Perfect was so much a part of my life. I, much like Nick, was just one of those kids that anytime I had a piece of gum in my mouth, you've got to spit it out and slap it into the air. And just at all aspects of my life, there was some sort of thing that Curt influenced, especially as a wrestler. I talked about it in one of the previous podcasts, I believe part 1, where I was like, yeah, as a pro wrestler, you know, you want to look at some of the greats and try and figure out what you're going to do. And Curt Hennig was at the top of the list of the greats that you watch and you figure out. So a lot of his career I've already seen, experienced, studied, dissected. And it's amazing now with social media and just as we're recording this, like I've been seeing a lot of like GIFs of Curt Hennig pop up online, like the towel toss to Mr. Hughes and it lands on his shoulder perfectly. Him getting an ass whooping from Hulk Hogan and just over the top selling to the umpth degree, recognizing this is the golden goose, so you bump like a maniac in a champ for. And I even made reference that like I've had like people who knew me in high school that were like, hey, did you ever get to wrestle Mr. Perfect? And I'm like, I was like a year in when he passed away. Like that's the timeline doesn't match. But I just think about like, man, if the stars and the moons would have aligned and I got to a point where I'm at now and he was still wrestling now, I could only imagine how cool he would be. But I never got to meet him, but I knew people that have. And one of those people was Daphne from WCW. And you'd think, you know, Daphne was just a manager. David Flair probably would have little or no interaction with someone like Curt and his pedigree. But I can't remember what the actual bonding moment was. But like Daphne, I think, did the same sport that Kurt's daughter did, or they had a similar knee injury. But for whatever reason, like, Curt got to be good friends with Daphne, and like he would always look after her. Like, hey, are they taking care of you? Are they showing you respect? Are they being good to you? What are they doing with you storyline wise? Like checking in with a young talent, making sure everything's going okay in their career. And I gotta believe that that's what his place would be in professional wrestling. Would be some sort of agent, writer, producer, coach, whatever they're referring to it now. But just somebody who's like, hey, this is what they want to do. These are the kind of the spots, but you know, maybe we can, you know, work it out, make it work. Maybe do this, think about this. You know, they did take it, but also pull you aside and have that conversation. Like, oh, they're taking care of you, okay, doing that. And I think one of the more valuable things, well, not valuable, but one of the more fun things that I heard about Mr. Perfect from Daphne is that Kurt's favorite drink of choice was Miller Lite with warm Jack Daniels.
Oh, yeah.
Which he would take a shot of, and he would gargle it so he can get in your system faster. So I don't drink like I used to anymore. I do not. But when I heard that, when I was drinking, that was what I do all the time. But if I have like a long weekend and it's, you know, I'm at a bar and it's like, all right, it's been a long week. I don't need to worry about driving home. And what do I want to kind of celebrate or get past the weekend that I just have? I always want my Curt Hennig beer and a shot, and I always ask for Jack Daniels warm if possible, and then a Miller Lite, and you gargle the Jack, and then you shoot it with the Miller Lite, and that is my regular bar order. If I ever have a bar order, it's because of Curt Hennig, and I always think about it. I don't know if I go a month without thinking about him in some way, shape, or form, or something that he's done that's influenced me. I'm sure if I dissected probably my in-ring stuff even more, there's probably something that's kind of influenced me from him. I know I looked at his drop kick extensively over and over again, but I'm sure there's something that he's done in his career that's seeped into my DNA. So there's probably not a day or a week that goes by that he hasn't had some sort of influence on how I've lived my life, done my career, and most importantly, treated other people. Because when I hear about stories about how good of a guy he was, it makes me wish I could be that good too, in ring and out.
All right, big thank you to all our Patreon subscribers, all our regular subscribers too. If you want to help Tim Bell Pod have a good 2020, head over to patreon.com/TimBellPod. If you like the show, but you're not about to spend money on us three assholes, leave us a rating and a review. Follow us on social media at Tim Bell Pod. Pumping up those numbers helps us just as much as actual money in the long run. I'm Nicolessa on all the social medias. Mike is JTrotter27.
And I want to jump in real quick and throw out a social media feedback opportunity for the people that listen to us. So I was trying to come up with a rap to continue my rap career on Tin Bell Pod to shit on Curt because he thinks rap is crap, but I totally didn't come up with anything in time. But I have 2 lines, and I want to see if you guys can come up with something and then send it to us on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. But these are the 2 lines I have. You build on top of these. I don't mean to be Curt, but you're not so perfect. I don't know. I tried to rhyme perfect and it went terrible. So if you could come up with something, hit us on social media. This is very stupid, but we're doing it. Thank you very much.
So I'm Nicolessa on all the social media. Micah is apparently Nick Cannon on social media. And Jake is the Men Scout Manning on all the social media.
Go watch the goddamn Macho Man Randy Savage Picks the Perfect Partner video. It's the greatest thing ever. I can't put it over enough. I'm going to be annoying about it. There we go. Nick, say something.
Fight the patriarchy.
Yeah.
I told you motherfuckers to go to Patreon and support those 10 Bell Pod morons. I'm asking you, take the money and give it at patreon.com for those goofballs, because they know that I am the greatest wrestler on God's green earth. Earth, 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 earth.